Now, there are basically two types of innovation professors that you will meet in the program. They're the ones who say that innovation is something very special, very creative. We go out and touch the trees in the forest and all have a good time. Well, that's not me. My approach to innovation is very disciplined, is very German, and is very process-driven. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what I mean with an innovation, and then about the process of innovation, which I will defer to as the innovation tournament. Now, over the 20 years I've been doing this stuff, I've had the pleasure of working with many different companies, very different industries, from pharma to sports teams to government agencies. And really, all of these organizations had a common theme, a common ambition. They wanted to become more innovative. While what it means to be more innovative is clearly different in a pharma company than it is in a tech company, than it is for a basketball team, really, my belief is there's a common theme, there's a common process of what innovations are and how they can be managed. So let me start as an academic carefully defining what I mean with an innovation. An innovation for me is a novel match between a solution and a need that creates value. Now, I know that's a mouthful, so let me just repeat it for a moment. It's a novel match between a solution and a need that creates value. So I want to be mildly vague with what I mean with value. Value in a commercial setting is clearly dollars, but value could also be happier people, healthier people, engaged fans in the sport games. I want to be slightly broad about what I mean with value. Now let's try this definition on a couple of things that I'll show you. I show you these things, and you tell me whether they're innovation or not. Twitter. When Twitter came out, was Twitter an innovation or not? Think about that for a moment, apply my definition. My view is it was. Twitter was an innovation because the need was really people wanted to have a rapid communication, SMS, text style, very short information, and share that with a group. The solution of that, to that need, was some form of messaging that was basically relatively simple web technology that, as a dimension of value by now, has created hundreds of millions of users and has even influenced US presidential elections. And I will not go further down on Twitter on that dimension here. So another one, let's look at the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I hope your chemistry grade was better than mine. But let's look at the molecule here and ask ourselves, when the pharma companies are coming up with new chemical compounds, is that innovation or not? Again, let's think about our definition of the innovation. What the pharma companies do is the needs are pretty obvious. People have been suffering the certain medical ailments for many generations. What the pharma companies are really good at is coming up with new solutions. So in this case, this drug here is helping you with a lipid reduction, and that is basically a good thing if you're struggling from heart problems. The solution here, a drug called Zocor, simvastatin, helps you basically lower your blood lipids, which again has been in clinical trials shown to decrease the risk of heart disease and has, from a financial perspective for Merck, led to billions of dollars of revenue. So it is an innovation. All right, last one here. Think about the MP3 player industry. I had an MP3 player about the size of the remote control here about 16 years ago by a company called Rio. And you know what? That MP3 player held 64 megabytes of storage. It was just about enough to go for a 1-hour run, come back, and then you would reshuffle the songs to basically go out and get another run, not listening to the same music. So when the iPod came out, was that an innovation or not? Again, let's think about my definition here. A novel match between a solution and a need that creates value. Now, it's interesting in the case of Apple, since most of us had an MP3 player well before the iPod came out, they didn't really come up with a new need, the digital portable music. They didn't come up with a solution either. They actually went to the folks at Toshiba and said, guys, can you put me a disk drive in a box? They purchased the company that we now refer to as iTunes. They put all of this together. Was that innovation? I think most of us would say yes. And that's again the idea of putting together a novel combination between solution and need that creates value, and as we know in the case of Apple, has created billions of dollars of revenue. Now here's what's tricky about innovation. Now yes, putting together this new drug that helps with your blood lipids, that was creating billions of dollars, that was Merck doing about 20 years ago, but Merck also created a drug called Vioxx. Vioxx, a so-called COX-2 inhibitor, helps you with rheumatoid arthritis. And that drug didn't just generate billions of dollars, it was withdrawn later on, and it destroyed billions of dollars and had some serious negative side effects. Apple not just created the iPod, they also created the Newton. So innovation oftentimes is easy with the luxury of hindsight, because then you know whether value was generated or not. But at the outset, when you put together solution and need, innovation is actually really difficult. I like to visualize this with the following slide. And I leave it to you wondering how many hours I spent in PowerPoint pressing Ctrl-V until I had these 10,000 little circles together that you see on the slide. But I think this slide speaks to the heart of innovation. Innovation is not just creating the new, it's also finding what actually works. And so in the pharmaceutical industry, most of the action is actually rejecting what doesn't work. And you might be spending $1 billion just to negate, just to kill, just to eliminate what doesn't work. It's a very Darwinian process. So Karl Ulrich and I have done a lot of work in the pharma industry, and I very much remember our first time in the industry working with Merck Research Labs. And we were talking to these pharma executives about their pipeline, about the innovation processes. And it turned out that neither Karl or myself had a lot of kind of domain knowledge about bioavailability and toxicology and all this fancy statistics that goes on in pharmaceutical clinical trials. So the insight that we had was basically that pharmaceutical development process was just like the television show American Idol. Now, just for the record, I only watch these shows for academic purposes, but you can think about how this process works. I get thousands of wannabe stars. Most of them cannot sing. Now, that innovation process has really crappy input. But because it's a process, actually something really remarkable happens then. As you go over the season of American Idol, round by round, the singers get better. And why is that? Well, of course, because the bad singers get rejected and the ones remaining are good. And now that you have only a few singers still in the contest, you can start to afford to allocate some resources to them. You give them voice lessons and dance lessons, and step by step, round by round, the performance gets better and better. So think about that. Even music, even one of the most creative things that the human brain is capable of doing, even music is, in our view, the outcome of a process. Again, that is the process we refer to as the innovation tournament. Karl and I are both big fans of sports, and tournaments has a little bit of that athletic, the Olympic flavor to it. You start with many contestants, and then you go through the playoff rounds, the qualifiers, till eventually you hit the semifinals and the finals until you have the winning opportunities emerge. That is what we mean with the innovation tournament. Now, many academics refer to that as the innovation funnel. You can see the kind of the funnel shape here in this picture. Personally, I've never really liked that metaphor. What's wrong with this being a funnel? Well, really, if you think about the fluid dynamics here in a funnel, everything that you pour in at the top of the funnel would come out at the bottom. That would actually be a really bad innovation process. Innovation is, as we just saw on the previous slide with Merck, innovation is primarily about rejecting. It's about eliminating. And so this process can maybe be better described as a set of filters that get tighter and tighter as we go from the left to the right. Let me give you an example. I've done maybe 50 big corporate innovation tournaments with thousands of people, and I've done another 100 of these tournaments in smaller settings such as classrooms. And so here's an example that I can share with you because it was done in an academic environment. Here at Penn Medicine, we have about a $3-4 billion healthcare system with around 20,000 employees that 5 years ago decided that they wanted to transform the patient experience and improve the patient experience away from the academic medical center towards something that would be more enjoyable for the patient. What did we do? We reached out to the 20,000 employees of the healthcare system, had them submit through an online tournament in the first round, submit ideas to a system. We crowdsourced these ideas. Everybody could participate. That allowed us to identify a couple of hundred employees that were invited to participate in workshops, very similar to the tournament workshop that we're going to be doing together in our program here. Again, we crowdsourced, we voted, we had experts judge, we narrowed it down to 20, till ultimately we had 10 ideas be pitched to the board of trustees, the senior leadership, and we picked 2. So when I say tournament, I really mean big numbers. I'm not talking getting from 5 ideas to 1 idea. I'm thinking about a really large transformation of the organization. Now you might say, like, hello, this is pretty obvious, right? I mean, of course, if I want to have a great idea, I need to look at more ideas in the upstream so that I get the best idea that I can get. And so I agree that the idea of having a tournament, the idea of choosing out of many ideas is not that radical. It's something that I hope is intuitive to you. But let me ask you this. When you think about running a tournament, whether you call it tournament or not, how do you decide how to run the tournament? It's not about if should I run a tournament or not. It's really about how. How many ideas do you consider at the outset? Do you start with 100 ideas, or do you want to go get 1,000 ideas? Where are the ideas coming from? Who is voting on them? Is it voted by the management, by other employees? Is it voted by the customers maybe? How do these innovation tournaments that you are creating, how are the ideas that you're sourcing, how are they supporting your strategy? See, there are lots of questions that once you have this process, you can make this process the best process possible. And that's really the whole idea of having innovation as a process, is that you can manage it and make it the most successful process that works for you and gets you out with new products and services that is creating value for you and for your customers.